All right, so we're here today talking with Phil Pfeifer, the owner of Beast Training Academy in New Lenox. We're going to go over sport-specific training. We're going to go over training for pretty much all ages. He's starting guys out. How young, Phil, are they starting out?
I started them out in the second grade.
Okay, good. Second grade, yeah. So 7, 8 years old.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then what does Beast Training have to offer? What is there certain courses, or is it just a membership that we get and go there whenever we want?
I run Beast Training Academy like your normal health club membership. So everybody's a member. Inside that membership, you get unlimited classes throughout the week. So we would offer from second grade to seventh grade, we offer classes Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. and then Saturdays at 9 a.m.
Okay, you guys are located right up by Lowe's there in New Lenox. Bulldogs and stuff like that, that same little plaza there, right?
Yeah, we're right behind Starbucks.
Right behind. Okay, good. What's your call it? Let's talk about your background. So you high school athlete, football player, baseball player. What else? Where'd you go from there?
I went to St. Rita High School on the south side of Chicago. Played football, baseball. I teased my boys that I was undefeated in wrestling. I was 4-0 in St. Rita's first wrestling team they ever had.
Nice.
And we laugh about that all the time.
Quit while you're ahead?
Yes. And then I went to Cornell College in Iowa, and I played football and baseball there. It was Mather Sports Hall of Fame there.
Okay, and then as far as classes go, you majored in like sports medicine, or what did you major in?
At Cornell, my undergrad, I majored in biology and exercise science.
Okay.
And then I went to UIC, and
Right.
I got my master's degree in kinesiology.
Right. So I mean, we're talking about somebody with a background that you were designed to do this. Like you were at Athletico before. I remember at one point you were.
My very first job out of college was teaching biology classes at St. Rita High School.
Nice.
I also worked as their strength coach, as their athletic trainer,
Right.
and I coached football and baseball there.
Okay, so you're not just some guy who saw some YouTube videos and decided I'm going to open up a health club and went from there. You've got a long background, 20 years of this sort of thing under your belt as far as work goes, and then education before that.
Yes, there's a lot of guys like that out there, but I have the full backing to design the programming appropriately.
Right. And you do sport-specific training. So if someone brings you their, high school softball player, I mean, you're all over that. Your daughter's a high school softball player right now.
Yeah, she is, and that's exactly what we do. I also do group classes with kids. So it doesn't need to be specific to your sport. It really is generally what is the foundation for all athletes.
Okay, good. My boys wrestle with his boys for years and years now, and my thing's always been all around the wrestling. I mean, and my guys they played baseball when they were little, and they enjoyed it. They never knew who won the game at the end of the game. They did, but wrestling you can't not know. When you leave the mat, and then. But they kind of fell out. Everything was boring to them except for the wrestling. They really like to be on the mat and everything else. Now we're going to quit wrestling and we're going to do curling this year. No, I'm just kidding. But so if someone comes in with someone and they're like, we really want to work on these specific things, you'll design playbook for them to work out as?
Exactly. How we do it is some of it's cost and time management. So we also have a high school class that goes Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. or Saturdays at 10 a.m. And if you're looking at general strength development, power development, speed and agility for your high school athlete, and you're not worried about it being specific to wrestling, it's a cheaper cost to do it. You get more options during the week to do it, and that may be what you want to do. Otherwise, we can put you inside what I call customized programming, where I'm doing a lot of the same stuff, but then we're tweaking it to make sure it's specialized toward the sport that you play. Okay.
Now, how about I belonged to a gym when I was in my late teens and 20s. It was heavy metal gym, and it was, a bunch of guys in there screaming and picking up the dumbbells and everything else. If you're just somebody in their 50s that wants to be in a gym that you're going to get some good advice from, I mean, it's an okay place for those people to come to at your place. I mean, the heavy metal gym was like all just bodybuilder dudes. It was just rampant with crazy guys, and everything else. It was intimidating for somebody who would, 40-year-old woman that wants to come in there and get a workout in. But you've got classes available and stuff like that to those people where they feel comfortable coming in there.
Yeah, I have it broken up into 3 segments. My 2nd grade to 7th grade is one group of kids that we train with. Then I do high school, and I tend to throw my 8th graders into the high school group because my main concern is that when they hit high school, they're going to be put on strength training programs. The high schools in our area do not have strength coaches, so it's usually a coach who knows his way around a weight room.
Right.
Or is the biggest guy in the hallway.
Right.
And that's not always good for the kids who haven't lifted before in terms of technique and injury prevention. So I like to teach my 8th graders before they hit high school the proper technique, foundations, things like that, so that when they get in that room, they know what they're doing and they're not going to get hurt. And then my 3rd group is my adult group. And that goes anywhere from 25 to 75. And what we do there is I design the programming so that anyone, any size, any shape, any age can get through the workout. And they can do it at their pace, they can do it at their strength levels, and everybody gets done within an hour with how I design it.
Good. So when I see something that says strength or a beast, a training academy, it seems more like something that I can go there and get personalized help rather than, and I mean, I can't stress the amount of times I've been in the gym to see someone. There's all the videos on YouTube of the wacky people doing wacky things on equipment that they're not supposed to and everything else. At least you could cut through some of that. And, I would venture to guess that a big part of your business has to do with making somebody feel comfortable with coming in and getting the proper, instruction in that situation where a lot of people are embarrassed, especially dudes, right? The guy comes in there and he's got a little bit of build on him. He wants to make sure that he know. The smartest guy in the room is the guy who walks in there and I don't know anything. Just, you're the guy. Teach me how to do the thing. It seems like an appealing place to go to if you were an advanced guy or even a total novice, somebody that, just started in it. And does it matter what age you are to just start working out?
Are you talking about youth?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying regular. I'm saying if you're 50 and you've never been a workout guy, can you come into your gym and see some results?
You sure can. Okay. So the reason why I'm good at what I do is that I do get all my clients' results. The fitness industry is based on failure. We've all failed at it, and we've all gone back on January 1st and tried it again, and we all fail.
So what are some of the expectations? I definitely see people with unrealistic expectations. And then, there's a certain, the commercials that are on TV, they're mostly unrealistic. There's some guy that's got the perfect genetics to be, they're guys that barely work out and they look like Adonises. And then there's people that, kill themselves and they look okay. I mean, you just saw the last UFC with Ben Askren? I mean,
yes.
That's a dad bod there, man. That's, woo. Even my boys were like, holy cow, it looks like a kid at the beach with a popsicle in his hand. He looks terrible, but he's obviously incredibly physically fit to do what he does.
Everybody has their own story.
Right.
So I turned 49 yesterday, and I've
happy
had
birthday. Right,
thank you.
Right.
I've been type 1 diabetic since I was 12.
Oh wow!
So for 37 years, the body starts to take its toll. So as I'm getting older, there's other things that pop in. You wouldn't know that just by walking down the street with me and
no, I've never. Right, I've known you for a long time. I've never known anything about there. I didn't know there was any diabetes that was going on there at all.
So everybody has their own story, and how you choose to kind of go at your fitness levels, reach your goals, is different for everyone.
Good. Okay. I mean that's a fact. We're all unique in our own way. I mean, I was a guy who worked out a ton when I was younger. I got injured and the whole world changed as far as working out goes. I am really not in a situation where going to a gym, I showed you my gym out there. It's all set up for exactly what I need to do when I can do it. Your gym is good for the masses. I'd be interested in encouraging people that are 50, 60, 70. I don't know. Should a 70-year-old start working out?
I have a 72-year-old woman that works out with us. Now, she does things at her pace. She does things at her strength level. We've taught her how to do things she never thought she could do before. All she needs to do is walk in there, trust my programming, and put in the work. And she's done amazing stuff with getting through the classes. The way I run my classes, I call them small group personal training. So we all know the cost of personal training. If you were to join our program and you were to come twice a week for the adults, basically you're getting personal training for $10 a session.
Sure.
Now, when I say small groups, we go anywhere from 2 on certain days all the way up to 14 or 16. So everyone's getting attention. How I run it is I put together a board for that day. The unique thing with my facility versus a lot of the other classes in the area is that I design a special workout every day. And if we've been at this for almost 3 years now, we've never recycled the same workout.
Okay, now, so how long has the 72-year-old been coming to the gym?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, now that's a testament in itself that the 72-year-old was 70 when she started. 2 years into it, she's still showing up, so she must be feeling like she's getting something out of it.
So as I said, and as you mentioned, everyone's different. Everyone has a different goal. They want to achieve something different. I get most of my male adults are guys who are going through body changes or getting to a certain age. They go to the gym. They know what they should be doing, but the motivation to do it, or today I'm going to do 12 reps and they get to 8 because they get bored. Or every day they go in the gym, they're doing the same exact thing. What they come to me for is to get that programming kind of genius out there. They know what they're going to be doing. It's listed on a board. They go through it at their pace. They're burning their calories, and they're walking out reaching good results. Where if they went on their own 3 or 4 days in the week, they're bored, they can't get through their workout. So these are the things that we bring to them. Even with the 72-year-old woman, the same thing. The one thing she said to me, and we all kind of laughed about it, was there's a special blouse that she likes, and now she can fit in her blouse. The other thing was she likes to wear a suit jacket when she goes out to dinner or events.
Sure.
She could never button it. Now she can button her jacket.
Right,
so
right. Those are small things, but that's a big deal to.
When you're looking at that young athlete that wants to get a D1 scholarship, but then you're talking to the 72-year-old grandma whose life goals are different, and all she wants to do is wear her favorite blouse and button her jacket.
Right.
These are the kind of stories that we deal with in the facility.
Sure. Okay. So back to the that's probably your odd situations to have the 72-year-old, and which is I find it great. I mean, I'd always planned to be that like guy in my 70s that was still working out and staying in shape. I feel better mentally. I feel better physically. I sleep better for sure when I'm working out. And my schedule in the summertime is like in the summertime we're really busy with the contracting and real estate. As I'm a real estate broker, it's busy. It's tough to get a workout in. So then it's like get in the gym, get my hour and 15 minutes in or whatever I can real quick, get out, get food, and I'm done. But in the winter, when it's high of 8 on the regular, I live in the gym. I turn the TV on and I'll hang out there sometimes for 5 hours just finding stuff to do. And for me, I find it's better to do that than to park myself in front of the TV and watch TV. I'll turn the TV on. If there's a football game on, that's great. That's 3 hours that I can hang out in the gym, do some this, do some that. Now, do you see any problem with that? Like, just being a gym rat, just hanging out in the gym?
Well, the one thing that I work on is the biggest excuse is always time.
Time, absolutely.
So I need to design programming that get people in, get them out, but also find results. So the way I train adults, I call it metabolic conditioning. I need to control your metabolism to make sure that A, we're burning the calories. B, we're keeping that metabolism high throughout your entire day so it continues to burn calories.
Okay.
The second part of that is building lean muscle. Lean muscle helps raise your metabolism. And through all this, I haven't had an adult who has not lost less than 25 pounds in the program.
Wow. So now what do you like, how important is diet? Like my line was always we have wrestlers, and I don't let my guys not eat. You got to eat. You just got to eat the right stuff. And my line with them always was, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but old people and fat people diet and exercise. You're an athlete. You eat and you train. Eat and train. You put fuel in the machine and you go to work. If you're not getting enough, weight off to make weigh-ins, work harder, run more, do the things you're supposed to do to burn the calories. This is a machine that you put so much into it and get so much out of it. So, I see other guys doing it the other way, right? They sit in the sauna and everything else to cut weight. They want to just relax. And I don't feel that's the right way to go, but what do you think?
All those clients I just mentioned have done this without being on some sort of diet.
Right.
So they're able to do what they want to do nutritionally and still cut the weight because of the way the program's designed. Now, the more strict you are with your calorie intake, the higher or better results you're going to see.
Sure.
But I do believe that the body, if you think of the body as a machine, or you think of the body as a car, right? Food is the gas that drives the car. Depending on the kind of gas you put in, it's all about the best thing to make that machine run efficiently. So when you talk about athletes, and not using the term diet, I agree with you 100%, it's what kind of fuel are we providing that high elite machine.
Eat healthy for sure, but don't diet, because diet to me means like, oh, I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't have, the extra amount. I mean, don't, my guys, your guys are probably the same. When it's wrestling season, they don't eat like they eat when it's not wrestling season, because they're, they understand they got to work that off if they do, and it's a thing. But if the plate I put in front of them is a chicken breast, green beans and carrots, well, that's fine. It's all healthy stuff that they're eating and everything else. If I put a double bacon cheeseburger in front of them and French fries, that's probably not a good idea, because they're going to eat a quarter of it and like not push it away. I just got into recently, and I'm finding like I feel pretty good about it, is it's intermittent fasting. So like I'm using like a 8 to 10 hour window where I'm eating, and then I don't eat for 14, sometimes 16 hours. At first it was difficult for me to do, but once I get into it, like, it was fine. Like I'll stop eating at 5:30, and then I won't eat again until 10 in the morning the next day. So like that's my window there, is like, or 9 to 5:30, something like that. So I don't know if you've ever looked at any of that. Like, how much diet advice do you give over at Beast?
So I don't give very much at all. And there's a reason. People respect what I do because I stick to what I'm an expert at. So because I'm not a nutritionist, because I'm not a dietitian, I don't like to tell people how to handle that. I'd rather go through my Rolodex and refer them to someone who's an expert at it.
You know what? That's awesome. That's exactly, I've always said the smartest guy doesn't act like he knows everything. He says if he doesn't know the answer to something, he goes, I don't know, but I can go find out.
Right.
And then go find out from a source. That's terrific. I absolutely love that, man. That's good. What you call it? So yeah, I mean, and people can seek that out all on their own once they get, and probably once you get into a workout situation, you're probably more apt to go seek that out anyway to try and get better results.
Yeah, as you're feeling good about yourself, that's usually the next step.
Right. Wrestling is what, it's always been about around here, and so much of that is food and what you're eating, and with the weight thing, which is, I believe it's a lot better now than it was when we were kids, because guys were like, definitely putting on the garbage bag and running that stuff off, where you don't see any of that anymore. I mean, the Lincoln Way West wrestling team, I think a lot of those guys weren't cutting very much weight at all this year. Like, they got down to around their weight, and maybe they came up 6-7 pounds off it or something like that, and then by weigh-ins they were back down. But I hear stories of guys cutting 25 pounds back in the day from Monday to Friday. That's a little nuts,
Yeah.
So not the same, which is good. All right, so what's the cost at Beast? What are we talking about?
So the way I run it is like a health club membership. We're all used to the credit card on file, first day of the month, all the billing happens. What we do is I change my pricing based on your commitment. So if you're a 12-year-old athlete and you want to come in, and we're going to put you inside what I call our Beast coaching classes, that's going to be a class where we could have anywhere between 6 to 25 kids. depending on the season, depending on the day of the week, depending on the schedule of all the parents. Month to month, no contract, cancel whenever you want, $159 a month.
Wow, to me, that's great. That's terrific. Seems like business from a shrewd business point of standpoint, like a bad idea though, because like a lot of gyms make most of their money on people that don't show up.
Right.
So you sign that 6-month contract, and then you come for 2 months, and then the other 4 months the gym is not getting the equipment used, but they're getting paid.
Right.
That's fair, and that's a terrific way for the customer to do it, because there's no huge commitment on their part. So come into Beast and try it out. If you don't show up anymore, then you're not getting billed, so you're not hooked into it. That's nice, man. That's a real good way to do it. So I get my gym membership, and then I can come to as many classes as I want to? Or
We offer 5 for both of the youth athlete classes. We offer 5 classes a week. So you can come to all 5, and then you're setting your own price point. Or you come to 2. It all depends on your season.
Okay.
So what I told parents a long time ago, and this is where I learned over the years, if I have classes on Monday, Wednesday, and you have wrestling and you have CCD, and you're not coming to classes,
right.
So I'm, as a business owner, I'm perceiving that you don't want my service. The truth is, you may want it, but I'm not giving you an opportunity with your busy schedule to get there. So what I've done is I've had 5 classes a week. You set the schedule now. So if you don't come, it's on you. And you also set your price point. If you come once a week, divide $160 by 4 visits. You start getting into twice a week. Now you're looking at about a $15 small group personal training session. You're coming 4 times a week. We're under $10 a class. So the more time you put in, the better your price point is.
Good. Okay, now let's talk about motivation, because a lot of people, we talked about time being an issue, that they can't get in there, and then just getting in. And how would you advise someone to set themselves up to change their life? So say you're like a guy that's overweight and you're just not a workout guy, and you're coming back to it now. How do you change your life to get yourself in the gym? Like some guys, it's just like, hey, you work out that first time, you're living your best day today, come tomorrow, and they get it going. Other people, they gotta, write it down, or what's your advice for like getting someone to get their life turned around?
We know this: you can't motivate another person, right? They gotta be motivated on their own.
Right.
Once they walk in that door, though, they're showing that they're willing to get on board with the program you're setting up. The next key is about customer service, about treating people right. It's about treating people honestly. Here's what can happen. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's what you should expect. If you lay that all out for people, and then you let them come in and try out a class or two to make sure it's the right spot. I tell parents all the time, come in and try the class, because I'm not for everybody. When you come to my facility, you're working hard. And a lot of people, although they say they want to work hard, aren't used to it or don't want to do it. I'd rather not take someone's money, put them on a file, bill them once a month. It is definitely not going to use it because it's not for them. Right. So when they come into one class, they get a good feeling as this is the right fit for them. And I want them to see the environment. I want them to see who else is there. I want them to see all the kids that are there. More kids walk in alone thinking they don't know anyone and find 6 kids from school that they didn't know take this class. Sure. So after that first class, if I'm honest with you, I don't think anybody has not signed up afterwards. And I've never had a person cancel or quit their membership because they didn't like it. It's always been because of sports season starting.
Okay, so how long has Beast been open now?
April 4th will be 3 years.
3 years. And it's just gotten better every year as far as attendance and stuff goes?
We've grown over 25% every year.
Nice. So, like there's a lot of guys that, if you're a high school or college athlete, you've got all the motivation in the world to get in there, because you're going to get your butt kicked if you don't get into the gym and do what you're supposed to do. A lot of those guys, especially the top ones, as soon as they're retired from that sport, they don't know what they're training for anymore. Like that's not a, like they've got to get new goals and, their mind set on, because, if you're no longer a college wrestler anymore, I'm not going to beat myself up, to get in the gym, but the benefits are enormous, right? Just fight depression and every other thing that you got going on, your sex life, everything's better when you're in the gym than when you're not. But, do you have like top athletes in there working out now?
So the way this has kind of grown, the high schools are hard because the coaches want to wrap their arms around their athletes. So I go up and down with the number of high school competitive athletes I get. What I really get are the athletes who need that edge. So I'm not getting your top running back in the area. What I'm getting are kids who want to be that top running back, the kids who need that help, because the kids who are number one are getting that help, or they're at school and their coaches are a little bit stingy with letting them go to other places.
So you're saying
to
like
train.
it's like just like when I've coached for years in wrestling, the kid that catches the coach's eye is the kid that's really really good, and then he's getting all the attention, and then the kid would like to be that kid needs to get his butt into Beast and become that kid so the coach can pay attention to him.
That really is how our businesses run. The kids who choose to come. The way our businesses run today has kind of organically grown into what it is. So when I look at my second grade to seventh grade group, the one thing you mentioned was about past the athletic days. Well, one thing I like to look at is if kids start learning that fitness is important at a young age, they're going to grow up knowing fitness is important, whether they're an athlete or not. They're going to get their PhD at Northwestern. They know they need to get on that treadmill. They know they need to do some ab work. They know they need to lift some weight to build some lean muscle while they're going through the stresses of going through school. Same thing as we become adults when we get married and we have kids. Working out is a great stress releaser. And the other part of that is we know that things happen health-wise, but in general, more healthy people have less health issues as they get older.
Right.
So it's important at a young age to learn that.
Sure. I mean, then, the advantage that I would see in a place like Beast is that you're going to get the guy with the education. Like, what's the staff like? I know didn't you have a wrestling coach or two over there doing something?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I like to bring in my staff that helps me. All the programming is designed by me. So everything that a kid goes through is always written up by me. But I have some great assistants and coaches that will run my program with the kids. And I like to get coaches that can relate to kids. So they have great attitudes. The kids love them. They become their buddy. They want to work hard for them. All the things that when you're looking at it and think about your best coaches, I want the younger guys to be that for these young kids.
Sure,
they need to be role models. They need to be ex-athletes. They need to be people who can talk to the kids. I also like the assistants that teach, because it's easy to put a group of kids together. Okay, do 10 of these, do 15 of these. But when you can stop a kid and say, listen, we need to work on the form here, and here's why we do it this way, or here's how we have to fix it up. That's when real coaching matters. That's when really the value of Beast Training Academy comes through, when the parents see that we're educating the kids as much as we're pushing them through exercises.
Sure, right. Oh, when I coached, it was totally. I'd love to explain to them. My coaching style. Obviously, I'm not very hands-on. I'm a dude busting around, coaching guys in a room where I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not gonna touch the kid and get move him around. He's got to listen to the words coming out of my mouth. But it was great for me to try and get the kid to wrap his brain around exactly why you were doing this thing. Like, don't just teach the kid the move. Don't teach him how to get out of this. Teach him exactly where you're going with it. I mean, and wrestling's all about deception. You're all like trying to show a kid you're going here when you're going there. So when you get even a 7 or 8 year old kid and you go, listen, we're going to trick him. They dig that, right? They're like, oh yeah, that's really cool. So like, anytime you can get them to, buy in and think it's really cool, that's a good thing. But so if pretty much any sport, you've got somebody in there that can help out with just about any sport then.
Now remember, I don't do the X's and O's of sports.
Okay.
I do the fitness, the strength development.
Sure.
So basically, the same things that a softball player needs are the same things that a swimmer needs, are the same things that a wrestler needs. There's basic lower body explosive movements are key to every sport. Then you got to work on your core strength, which is key to every sport. When we start differentiating, we look at the upper body. We can train a swimmer who's got a stroke with their shoulders differently than a baseball pitcher who's got a throw. So that's when you have to start differentiating between the exercises you choose. But every athlete is going to benefit from a very explosive lower body, because in any sport, power is developed from the feet up.
Okay.
The same thing with core strength. A baseball hitter, we don't need big arms to hit the ball 400 feet. we need a strong lower body, we need a strong core.
Sure.
So in every sport we come through, that's why I can train different sports in the class, because we're going to hit the things that are key to making you perform at a higher level.
Right. So what's the difference between, like, if I'm comparing Beast Training Academy to just Gold's Gym or something like that? Like, it's not just at Beast. It's not really focusing so much around weights as it is sports training. So you're doing things, box jumps and stuff like that are different than the guy that's just going in and bench pressing and curling and stuff like that.
Yes, and that becomes somewhat of my argument with the parents, is the kids who are finding themselves at LA Fitness versus a Beast Training Academy. Because at Beast, we have a set schedule within that hour, what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish. So I'm going to get you through a workout designed with the education behind it. So when you walk out of there, we know we're making positive improvements in the sport you're going to play. As we go with our group of 4 friends at LA Fitness, like we all have, we know what happens there, right? My kids don't rest between exercises. Every one of my kids or adults will get a mile of cardiovascular in every workout.
Nice. That's the other thing with the Beast setup. You're talking about building things that are functional, where, like, and no knock on a guy that wants to go to the gym and just look in the mirror and all that. That's, hey man, at least you're in the gym. That's fine.
Right.
I look at it like, you want to look good, do something athletic. I told my boys, I go, listen, don't fall in love with the weight room. That's not what you're doing. You're doing things that are specific to what you're doing. The byproduct of all the working out you're doing, you should get to look real good. Chicks will look at you because you look good, but that's a byproduct, and that's just something that happens. It's like saying, hey, if you train your ass off, winning's a byproduct.
Yes.
You're going to win.
Well, I like what you said by byproduct, because what I would put looks, especially in the high school athletes, I'd also say looks / self-confidence. Every athlete needs to be confident on the mat, on the block. Some of the outfits they put these athletes in nowadays, it can be a huge difference if you can have good shape, nice muscular form, and then put you in that tight swimming suit or the tight gymnastic
Singlet
suit.
and everything else, right.
You got to feel good when you're up in front of people.
But how many times have you seen an athlete come out onto the mat and you're like, whew, look at that guy. He looks like a Greek god, and he's got no athleticism. Like, that's not
true.
There's functional strength, and like my boys do carpentry work all summer long. They become farm strong. We're picking up things like that. And I mean, granted, if all you're doing is doing, core stuff and everything else, it'll look somewhat good, but it's not that classic, like, V. You get a square back out of that situation. But in a wrestling match, you pick a guy up and throw him right over your head, no problem, because he's got that farm strength.
The way I describe my business is, I'm not a strength coach. I'm not a speed coach. What I am is, I train for athletic development, which starts with athleticism. So in my 2nd to 7th grade classes especially, you'll never see us lifting weights. What I'm doing is building the athletic foundation. So you're a construction guy. You understand a foundation of a house and how you have to start with a strong foundation and build and build and build. The same thing with athletics. You got to have that strong foundation. If you don't have it, let's say you're the biggest kid at 12 years old. He's always the kid everybody wants. He's the biggest pitcher. He's the biggest hitter. But if he's never done anything to build the athleticism or build that athletic foundation, you see that's the kid that gets caught in high school when he doesn't grow anymore. Or he doesn't have the ability to go back on that athletic development and continue to grow. Where other kids, if we start them young, they're building lower body explosive power. They're building upper body strength. They're building core strength. They're building speed and agility and conditioning work and flexibility and balance. And that's the key pieces of our program, is to build that at the younger ages, so that when they need to keep building on it, or they need to be able to pull that out of their bag of tricks to become better, compete at a higher level, they have that foundation.
Sure. I'm really turned on by the whole idea of, it's not just hand the kid dumbbells and teach them how to, and there's something to that too. If you're using the wrong form, just doing dumbbell curls, you're not going to get as far with it as you would if you're doing the right form. Technique is a really big deal, and that's even if you're just looking to come into you and say, hey man, I'm looking for the best technique to bench press as much as I can. I'm looking for the best technique to, deadlift, all this stuff. the wrestling stuff, we do weird stuff, like Turkish get up and good mornings and stuff like that, like
Right.
just strange things. We got that like Roman chair out in the gym and everything else. Those are not glamorous. No one's doing that like looking at their lower back in the mirror, man. Like
Right.
that's looking tight. That's not how it works out. But so like having muscles and all the other stuff is terrific. That's great to look in the mirror. But if that's all you got, then that's not so great. It'd be nice if you had the functional strength to go along with it, and then you also looked in the mirror and it looked good. Because what are the parental expectations do you run into a lot of trouble with parents? As a wrestling coach, there was some trouble with parents, and some of the worst trouble with parents was as soon as the kids started winning, they fall off the deep edge.
So our term is the helicopter parent. We see that in all sports. We also see it in the gym, where when the parents come in, they want to tell me what has to happen. Usually what happens is as they see their kids working, as they see their kids improving, as they're seeing their kid run faster on the bases or jump higher on the basketball court, they usually step back. Once they understand that I'm the expert and they no longer are, I don't have the same kind of issues you have as a football coach, a baseball coach, a wrestling coach. The parents usually know their place in the gym. Sometimes it takes a little longer to be able to show that the kids are going in the right direction. I do have parents that want to yell out to kids once in a while, but I step right
Really,
up
at
to
the
them.
gym there?
Oh, yeah. I've had people sitting in the waiting room and yelling out to their kid on their squats or on their boxes or things like that. And usually it all takes is walking over there and saying, you pay me to be the expert, right? If you see my facility, I have a very small waiting area for parents inside, but I have a whole wall, 90 feet of glass windows. I tell the parents the best seat in the house is parking your car in that parking lot and watching through the windows. It's the best seat for you, and it's best for your son or daughter as they're working out with a group of people, and it definitely takes the stress off us coaches.
That's it too. I swear we went back to I coached youth level again this year, and I had to get the boys cards, and we were coaching, and I'm like, if we could just put all of these parents, and I've got the best parents that there are because they've got their kids in wrestling, so that you're already like in my book, you're really good. Like you're not a kid that's a parent that's just letting their kid hang out in the basement, play video games all day long. You're here at a wrestling tournament on a Sunday, and you're going to be here all day, so you're terrific. But you're screaming at your 6-year-old about some match that no one's going to know about in a couple of years. If I could just put all those guys behind like hockey glass, it'd be terrific because the kid could get something out of it. I've had parents that their 6-year-old comes off the mat, it's his first year wrestling, and the parent is livid that this kid lost a match. And I'm like, I want to ask him, is your goal to make the kid quit the sport? Because that's what you're doing.
Right. That's funny. I think a lot of the parents place a lot of their own value on how well their kid performs. I have a different technique even with my son, and it is you beat the kids you should beat. You lose to the kids that you should lose to, and you cut the gap from year to year. Because I don't have these huge expectations that he's going to go out and do this and that. But what I do expect is that he does his best, and he ends up on top with the kids that he should end up on top with. He's going to lose to the kids who are better than he is. But let's start cutting that gap year from year so that the numbers are shifting in your favor.
Sure. That's and I've had my moments where I'm frustrated and stuff like that, and I don't live vicariously through my kids. So that's another thing. I see a lot of, in gymnastics, that was the most, like just parents that look like they haven't done an athletic thing in their life, and they are so hung up on what their 9-year-old daughter's doing. Like, boy, that's a lot of pressure you're putting. Every kid wants to impress their parents. Every kid that takes the field is afraid they're going to lose their parents' love if they do. Don't make it worse.
Right.
That's going to happen anyway.
Right.
So I don't care for any of that. And the other one, when my guys were little, my guys were kindergarten. They were put into wrestling, and it was a 2-year commitment. That I'm talking to 6-year-olds. Like, hey, you're going to wrestle. This is what we're doing right now. The year before that, we practiced, wrestled, and all that other stuff for a while. We just made it fun. And that's all it should be when you're 6 years old anyway. But the next year came. I didn't ask them. We put the singlet back on. Here we go, back to wrestling and everything else. By the 3rd year, it was just what we do and everything else. I get parents that bring their kid for 3-4 weeks to practice. And like, well, not Johnny's thing. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Johnny's 6. Johnny shouldn't know what his thing is yet. You should probably evaluate what, I mean, and there were sports for, I'm biased. I honestly think wrestling's the best sport that there is. And I don't care if we had kids that were autistic. We had kids that there was all kinds of different troubles with the kid. There's the one little guy, and I don't like to put any names when I do the podcast, but the one guy was a 4-time IESA state champ, and I think he's a 2-time runner-up and a 1-time state champ at Class A in, you know what I'm talking about.
Sure do.
But when he was little, you had to assign a coach to him because he was a space cadet. He would just walk off into the hall and stuff like that. Every day, but he's a terrific wrestler. He's just great, great as far as that goes. But everybody is their best them that they could be when they wrestle. It's a confidence builder. It's just teaching you. You got to eat right. You got to work out. If you just left wrestling and you never won any major tournament, but your life was, I'm going to stay in shape and I'm going to do what's good for me. And the harder I work at whatever I do, the better off I am. Those are great lessons. So
I think wrestling. Why I think wrestling is the greatest sport is because I think it most mirrors real life lessons out of any sport. I think coaches don't make the lineup. You have to earn your spot, right? Life lesson number 1. The hard work to be able to win or compete on a mat, life lesson number 2.
Sure.
You're going to be asked to lose weight at times. You got to pull it off. At the time, you're the only person on a mat. The team doesn't matter.
Nope.
At other times, the team does matter.
And so
there's all kinds of ways.
Wrestling is as fair as it can be, too. They take a kid, put a singlet on him, which is almost nothing, and a pair of shoes and a set of headgear, and they send him out there with another kid that weighed exactly the same as you. He's near the same age, and there you go. Go. Now, any other sport, there's parameters that are not going to be right. If you're not 285 pounds, well, football might not be for you because you just can't do it. If you're not 6'6", that basketball hoop, if you're 5'5", is still at 10 feet. So wrestling it's as basic as it can be. It's as fair as it can be. You don't need a special set of genetics to be a good wrestler. Do you see guys, like I said, I'm a big fan of Askren, man. That guy's terrific, and he's a terrific guy. I've emailed that guy, and he's emailed me right back, like a correspondence with a guy who's a silver medalist, I think, in the Olympics. I mean, he's a 2-time Hodge Trophy winner, and he's talking to me, nobody. So, terrific guy and everything else, but to see him with his shirt off, you're like, oh my God. And he'll tell you, when he got to Missouri, he's a D1 athlete, he couldn't climb the rope. He's just not an athletic guy. So wrestling's one of these sports that it's just how bad do you want it? Work hard, all this stuff, and you can be the best at it. So, yeah, I'm just head over heels for that. And I've never, in all the years coaching, a lot of apprehensive parents that didn't want their kid in there. I've never seen a parent that was like, boy, that wrestling thing, that was a real mistake. You know what I mean? Even if their kid doesn't do it after a couple of years, it was never a big mistake. So yeah, no, it's definitely my favorite. But the idea behind your place, it sounds terrific, man. It really does. It sounds like you'd be way better off putting your kid in that situation than just taking him to regular fitness joint, or I don't know, if Reclaim or something like this. Isn't that just a regular gym and stuff too?
Yeah, then they have good classes and things. And here's the kind of guy I am, a high character guy. I don't talk about competitors. I don't badmouth the other trainers that are doing it. We're all doing good things for good reasons. Some of us are better at what we do than others.
That, and maybe your reasons are different too. If the reason is you just want your kid to look good or whatever like that, well then, that's dandy. But I don't know, there's just so much more motivation to, if I'm a baseball player and I've seen results this way, I'm going to keep doing that thing. You can you can let a workout that you were doing just in the gym to look good go once you get a girlfriend. I don't need the workout no more. I got her.
Yeah.
So no. Where the athlete thing, that's terrific. And, there's men's league and women's league, volleyball and softball. You can keep your athleticism going, way old. I got a buddy that owns a yoga place in Chicago. He's terrific at what he does. He's super, super into it. And I watched a couple yoga classes, and the athleticism and balance it takes to do that. I came away with everybody over 40 years old should look into some sort of yoga or some of the things that you're offering, because you're offering athletic things to do, working on balance and working on things like that. Boy, if you could be 65 years old and still have some balance and some agility, you could live a better life than you can, if you don't. So
My adults, the look on their face when I call them athletes, it is, if I took a picture of it, we'd all be laughing at it. But we'll catch guys and like, you were an athlete once, and right now we're training like an athlete. The mind remembers that, and it doesn't take long for the mind to remember it and send those signals back to the body to be able to do, a back squat, to be able to do a hang clean, to be able to do a deadlift like you did when you were a young athlete.
sure. I like all the odd stuff. Like we talked about like Turkish get up and stuff like you. The normal person would not even know what that is. I mean, you're on the floor with a dumbbell or a kettlebell or something like that, and you're essentially doing some sort of strange, like someone, you'll have to Google it, but it's a strange way to stand up with a dumbbell over your head or a kettlebell over your head. But you're working on all this crazy core stuff, the
Right.
balance stuff, just your movement with weight and everything else. If you're doing it in the gym, no one's going to be like, "Oh man, I'm going to do that soon." Like it's not a glamorous thing to do.
You don't see that very often at LA Fitness, right?
No. Right. So those are the things that would be exciting about beast training. Now you got a website. What's the website?
It's www.beasttrainingacademy.com.
Okay, and I see your Facebook page and stuff like that. On the website, you got some results from some of the young athletes and stuff like that are there.
I have in social media, I have a Facebook page and we do Instagram. And basically, what I want to do is celebrate the accomplishments of the kids. So what we'll do is post a lot of their things they're doing during the week. The kids love to see that they're getting recognized for the hard work they're putting in. And the parents love, I get emails from the parents all the time about thank you for doing this or that. And it just motivates the kids to continue to keep working hard, whether it's at Beast Training Academy or if it's in the wrestling room over at Lincoln Way. It's just a way for them to understand that the hard work does have results.
Now, both of us have been around sports for years and years now, and then around being parents with kids. I was saying to you before we got talking on the cast here that I don't know of any good athlete that doesn't have an immense amount of parental support. It's super important that the parents are involved. But when I say parental support, I don't mean screaming. I don't mean, like so many parents want to take that kid when they come out of the wrestling room. Face was glued to the glass the entire time while the kid was in there, and they've taken a mental note on everything the kid did wrong the entire time. They're gonna, hey, that kid just got done with an hour and a half workout. Now is not the time. Go buy him an ice cream cone, or get him some recovery food, something like that. And then if you want to bring it up some other time, talk to him then. But you got to give a kid a minute to relax too. Like I look at so many kids that the kid's doing great and everything else, and I'm sorry to say, but the parents get in the way as far as that goes. They need to be supported. And listen, you gotta have a big wallet because stuff costs money nowadays. The kid that's got the more money is going to do better than the kid that's not.
Yeah.
And then you want to drive them places. You got to take them to. I've taken my boys to Oklahoma and Wisconsin and Michigan and Iowa to wrestle because that's where the best competition's at. So you got to be able to do all that stuff. But I would encourage parents that don't even have an athletic background, take them into Beast, because that's a place where you can immediately access somebody that has a real long time of athletic background, and he'll just put all his time right into your kid. And then it was for me, we played sports. We played everything. We played basketball with friends. We played hockey on the ponds. We, played football, wrestled, baseball, little league until junior high and stuff like that. But the parental support for me was terrible. Like my parents, it was a thing that Billy was doing, but it wasn't a thing that they were really involved in. The kids that took off with it were the people that their parents were driving them to Wisconsin and everything else with
Right.
that stuff. And it's been a life changer I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. Too much time in my hands. My boys, totally different. I think would you say there's more kids that are sports orientated nowadays than there were back, 30 years ago?
I think there's so many more opportunities to get involved in sports. no matter what sport that is, you usually have a higher end travel organization or you have an in-house program. So depending on your skill level, you can find a niche for yourself. But then there's so many different sports. So there was no lacrosse when we were younger.
No
And now
water polo,
yeah.
no, right? None of that stuff. The list is. I remember there not being a hockey team. I think 2 years after I graduated, there was a hockey team. I'm like, man, I've been playing hockey all winter, every winter. I
Yeah.
love hockey, but no team at the school. Now there is. That's terrific. I mean, I think there was a diving team, but it was like held at. We didn't have a pool at Lincoln Way until years after I was gone.
That makes it tough for a diving.
Yeah, right. Pretty dangerous. But so, not to keep harping on parental support, but if you're someone without a background in anything athletic at all, take them in, get it done, and then take your hands off the wheel. Let a guy like Phil take control of that situation.
See, my definition of parental support is finding the best opportunities for your kids and allowing them to have those. Just as I mentioned before about how I don't do nutritional advice because I'm not the expert, I don't do my taxes. I don't do my
Right.
teeth.
Right.
I go see a doctor.
Right.
The same thing, parents should find the expert that they trust the most to put their kids in those types of programs.
Right. I mean, from a layman, I agree. I mean, from I'm a guy that was seeking out working out and all that kind of stuff. And, with my guys when they were little, tried to devise things for them to do that we want to stay away from the weights. They were throwing tires and cinder blocks and all that kind of stuff around just to be in shape for wrestling, because other sports maybe not as much, but wrestling is how much are you doing outside of the 4 hours of practice you're getting every week. Those
Right.
are the kids that excel. There's
Right.
no way around that. And that's another parental support situation where if you're seeking out a gym like Beast, great. Your kid's going to do better than he would if he wasn't there, for sure.
Exactly.
So,
You had a friend who put out a suggested question, and it was about kids who just specialize
yeah,
in one
why
sport.
don't you go ahead and talk about that, because I'm going to read. I think I've got one more after that, and I've got them written down here. So,
But,
but yeah, Ernie
so here's what's
from
happened.
social media.
We've, as you mentioned, we grew up playing every sport.
Yeah,
So we went from baseball season into football season into basketball season. There wasn't a lot of youth wrestling at our time. So those were the sports you played, and we all played them all. Nowadays, we're specializing. One of the theories I have about specializing is because somebody found out a way how to make money on it.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's really where it came into. You have softball organizations, you have wrestling organizations that can do something year round and charge fees for it. And I think that's where this kind of all blew up. Now, I do think there is room for specialization because it's almost like keeping up with the Joneses. If you're not wrestling year round, you're not going to be in that top elite group of wrestlers. You need to get the work in
Sure.
outside of just your season.
Sure.
The same thing can be said for softball nowadays, for baseball nowadays. Everyone's got an expert that teaches them how to hit, how to pitch. If I was a high school baseball coach, I would be nuts because it doesn't seem like they're my athletes anymore. They're the hitting instructor's athlete, they're the pitching
Right,
instructor athlete,
right.
and I kind of just put them in their positions for 3 months of the year. So that's kind of, there's good and bad about both of that.
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, think about it. I think about it from the business standpoint, and it's terrific that somebody that's into athletics, if you were a wrestler and now you can make a living with that sport, coaching it, hey, that's great, man. If the kids are getting something out of it and you're actually living your best life, that's terrific. I mean, find something that makes you happy and do that thing. I mean, that's what you're doing. You were always interested in that sort of thing, and now that's your life. So that's what you're doing. That's great. I mean, those are the best people you want doing those things for you. Are if a guy always loved construction and always loved that stuff, putting things together. I mean, I was a kid that you gave me an alarm clock, I'm going to probably take it apart in a couple weeks and find out what's inside. I'm going to break it, but I want to know how it all works and everything else. So when it came to building, it was interesting for me. When someone gave me something that was difficult, that was thrilling because this is going to be hard to do. So my mind was right in my wheelhouse, where this is in your wheelhouse. So this is a good thing. I'm glad to see the privatization of all the sports like that going, because when I was a kid, you went to wrestling during wrestling season. You went to gymnastics when that was going on because you were getting strength training then. And then you ran cross country for wind. Those were your 3 seasons to be a wrestler. Now it's high school, which is folk style, freestyle and Greco all summer long, and then back into folk style again. And all the while you're lifting weights.
The positive thing about this for me is that if you are going to be a specialized athlete and go year-round in one sport, you need to be in the weight room. Because there's where people argue that the bad thing about specializing is overuse, it's injury, things like that. And that's true. It's a big part of it. But if you're going to be putting your body through that 12 months a year, you're going to need to also take care of your body by building the proper power, building proper strength, injury prevention type things. And that can help you if you're a year-round baseball player, if you're a year-round softball player,
if
to
you're
keep you in
year-round
shape.
carpenter.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to lift weights just so I wouldn't get injured picking up beams and stuff like that. Like, there's all kinds of things that you're doing that if you're totally out of shape, because, if you're a carpenter, a laborer, a roofer, there's a 3-month period in the wintertime in our area that you may not be working. So you should be doing some workout stuff. Come into Beast, they'll give you some core workout situations, and you can make yourself less prone to injury, and we all are once we get older,
Well, a good example, I was working out of a different facility, running the Beast program under a different roof. And next to me were batting cages. And a great hitting instructor had the cage next to me all the time. And I'd watch him with the same kid, week after week.
Oops.
My bigger issue with him was the kid really couldn't even hold the bat. So I approached him one day and said, "You're great at what you do, but you're going to be even better if this kid who's hitting ground balls back to you starts hitting fly balls and line drives." He's like, "Yeah, I get that." I said, "Well, what we're not getting is that this kid isn't even strong enough yet. He doesn't have a good enough core, doesn't have enough lower body strength to hold the bat correctly and swing that bat through the zone. If you were to refer the parents to me and we started doing foundation work so that he became stronger and he was able to hold the bat and he was able to swing with some authority, now you look like the greatest hitting instructor ever."
Right.
No one's going to say that, "Hey, Phil's great at what he does." They're going to say, "Boy, this hitting instructor is the best."
Yeah.
Not my kid is.
Right.
So
Right.
there is where it lies is what I try to do with the younger kids. There's certain things you can't do. Think about one of the hardest moves on a wrestling mat to pull off. And if you don't have the strength to do it, you're wasting your time teaching it.
Sure.
Same thing with hitting and throwing and all jumping and all these different skill sets we need in the sport. You need to build a foundation so that you can actually perform the techniques used in that sport properly.
Yeah, and I think too many athletes get into high school, like it's culprit with mine. They did all kinds of goofy little workout things. We used to take my daughter's balance beam that we had in the basement, put the boys on the balance beam at the end, and they would have balance beam wars. So they would like try and knock each other. It's a game that they're playing, but they're working on balance and push pull stuff for wrestling, and it made them better. When you get in high school, you're just standing in front of a mirror lifting weights or running or you're doing more basic things. Where if you come into Beast, they're going to give you. I mean, you guys got places to run sprints and you got stuff that
Yes.
you're doing. I mean, I'm not familiar myself with some of the. Like I've seen some crazy Joe Rogan workouts where the guy's like he jumps from like left to right and he's like crossing his foot over. It almost looks like a power skater, sprinter type deal. So like all kinds of those motions, which there's not a machine that works that out. Like you're not standing in front of the mirror doing that. There are things I've seen is stuff like a guy picks up a 90-pound dumbbell, one of them, not two, and he's go walk a half a mile with that thing carried on one side, set it down, pick it up with the other hand, and walk back the other way. Obliques, all the other stuff is worked out, stuff that you don't see in your right. You can look like that Zac Efron guy who's like shredded. You could have no athleticism at all. To me, and I'm biased, it's worthless. It's like the girl that looks good, but you can talk to her for all 2 minutes, and you're like, oh God, I got to get out of here. Like, that's not. You need to be a full-rounded person, and if you have, I really like the idea of looking good as a byproduct. I really do. That's terrific and everything else. Like, we'd have parents that the choice is always basketball or wrestling, same time of the season, and in this generation, they don't seem to fight like fist fight like we used to.
Right.
There aren't as many altercations, and I don't know if it's because everyone's face is in their phone or they're playing video games so much or what. But like my sons are juniors in high school. I got in my first fight in 4th grade, and I was in a fight every year. And by the time I was in high school, it was like, how many fights can I get into in 1 year? So we were always fighting. My sons have never been in a fight in their life, except for with each other. I mean, they beat the crap out of each other on a regular basis. But so life is different. But so my mentality was always like, when a parent's like, well, he's a football player. Wrestling's a really good sport to help, with a football player. If you're shedding blocks, all that hand fighting, everything's terrific. But we were thinking basketball because he's a tight end, so we want him to have good hands. And I'm like, well, listen, that's fine. If he's doing something athletic, he's not sitting in the basement. But if he's in the parking lot and some guy comes up and insults his girl, he's going to show him that crossover. He's going to show him how good he can dribble a basketball. He's going to find a basketball first. And the other guy's not going to be impressed. If he does a double leg takedown on him, we got trouble. So, that was always my thing. But it doesn't apply so much. I mean, some of these guys, the more sports you get them into, the least trouble they're going to get into too. I believe my guys probably would have gotten into fist fights if they weren't constantly in wrestling. They don't have time for that stuff. It's especially if you're going to Beast too. If you're at school all day long, practice till 5:30, and then you head to Beast until 8:00 at night. Well, where are you going to fight? You got no time.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit something there too. I'm a huge believer in year-round training. And one of the issues that we deal with now is that a lot of parents believe that football starts in July, let's work out March, April, May, June, and then he goes off into football.
Right.
What have you won on the first day of camp? You've won nothing.
No, right.
You have another 3 months to compete before your state titles, before your playoffs, before your national tournaments. You're in worse shape 4 months later than you were 4 months earlier.
Now, so do you do anything that's interesting? Do you do anything to help a kid peak at the right time? Like, I mean, you get a wrestling season, you can lose all the matches you want to until the end. You lose the matches at the end, you might not go anywhere.
Right. So we do. I try to keep the kids on the membership through their seasons. The other part I do is I offer an in-season program where they come in once a week. And that once a week is that day that we're working their core, we're working their strength, we're working their cardiovascular to make sure that they're keeping it up during the season. So it's not being lost throughout the season of competition. So I'm a big believer in that. My own kids will train 2 to 3 times a week during their seasons. Hey, I understand that they have school and they have practices and they have meets, but for them to keep excelling in those sports, they need to put the work in the weight room. Now, you change the workout up. We're not going crazy, but we need to maintain and get better day by day. I worked with he's the head strength coach for Major League Baseball. He actually has a team that he oversees, but then he's in charge of keeping everybody kind of in line. And he got the call from the front offices saying, we need these guys in shape at the end of the season. Everyone needs to have an in-season program. And the reason being is, what's their biggest time of year? Playoffs and World Series.
Right.
Who does Major League Baseball want on the fields? Their stars.
Sure.
If stars are injured or stars aren't producing at that time, you're losing fans. It's the same thing when it trickles down into our high school sports. If you're not ready to compete at your highest level at the time it matters most, what has the last 3 months mattered?
Right.
So that's where I believe in the in-season training, and kids continue to train to make sure they're staying on top of their game.
Right. That's why we don't think LeBron's better than Michael Jordan because, the rings, right?
Right.
That's all that matters. We can't compete them against each other in their prime. But so I mean, get your kid into Beast and, get it. If you get a 7-year, I'm not a big proponent of, the IKWF is starting kids out at 4 years old now. They changed now it's 4. It's too young. They're too little. You're putting. I see parents that are upset about 4-year-olds and stuff like that losing a match. you know, the best thing that I can see happening for a kid is loving a sport. Loving, I mean, like, absolutely. When you get that kid that's like, oh man, this is, I mean, my boys are all about, the NCAAs are this weekend coming up. It's the Super Bowl here. And it's nice because wrestling season's over, so we're sitting down, and we've got nachos and everything else. We'll spend part of the time in the gym watching the NCAAs, and the rest of the time, the NCAAs are on the entire time that they're on. So, it's a great thing for a kid to identify as. You know what I mean? Like if a kid doesn't have something to identify as, kids are always looking for that thing. So then, you're dealing with your kid. If he's not identifying as a baseball player, football player, basketball player, wrestler, he's identifying as the kid with the dreadlocks or the kid with the, like the cool. He's going to buy some sort of persona that he's going to put on to be that at school. The kids need to feel like they belong. It's terrific to belong to the football team and stuff like that. So it's a real healthy thing. But, yeah, I like it, man. I didn't know that much about Beast until this afternoon, and I think it sounds like a terrific thing to do, especially if you get your kids in there when they're 7, 8 years old and get them headed in the right direction.
Right.
The balance and stuff like that you're going to get from Beast training sounds like it's way better than you would get from just buying a weight set and going at it like that.
Yeah, and with the younger kids, like I mentioned before, a lot of things have organically grew for us. We have kids who aren't even in there to become better athletes. We do have a number of kids with type 1 diabetes, and how are we controlling the sugar level? We have kids who are, I would say, overweight or obese that are trying to learn how to combat that problem. We have parents who are worried that their kids are playing too many video games and sedentary. You don't have to be an elite athlete to come to Beast. And that differs. That makes me a little different than most of my competitors who are in the sports performance world, because they are dead set on the athlete, where I'm dead set on health and fitness and making kids better at what they do, feel better about themselves.
Kids take role models too, so parents, get yourself your membership at Beast and get working out too, right? I mean, if you see your parent doing a bunch of push-ups and all that other stuff, and I mean, there's stuff that you could take out of a place like Beast and do it at a hotel or do it, with minimal amount of equipment as far as that goes. So
it's funny, when I set up my programming, my younger groups that can't drive themselves, I also have a parent class that coincides with it. Because the kids won't be in the weight room,
good.
I can have the parents in the weight room. But I got tired of watching parents on their cell phones texting at my old place I was at while their kids were training. So what I did was I threw the parents in the weight room at the same time the kids who can't get there on their own are doing their training.
Okay. I got one more question from social media, and that's our friend Eric. He asked, do you feel that athletic training helps kids with medical issues like ADD, autism, ADHD, etc.? What sports would you recommend for kids with these issues? Now, I have my own background in that with, my boy Peyton was the guy that had to sit on the bouncy ball at school and everything. I was, can't sit still, can't sit still, can't sit still. And, mom wanted to medicate him. Like, we're going to get him in, we're going to fight. And I'm like, no, that's when, what can I put him in that is the most rigorous? And wrestling was the one. And we saw results. He's, focused and gets great grades and all that other stuff now. But I'd like to hear your answer. What do you think about what, obviously I believe it helps every kid be the best
sometimes
kid.
In comparison to Beast, it's hard to throw kids who have special needs into groups because they pull the attention away from the group. What I like to do is I like to have more personal time with them, and they respond like any other kid does. As soon as you start putting in the time with them and they start to learn and they start to see themselves improving, they're bought in. But the problem becomes in a large group of 15, 16 kids, too much stimulus, the environment may not be great for them, and then we have it's trying to keep them focused and on task and also keep the other kids focused and on task.
Sure.
So, but I do believe 100% that those types of things can be very beneficial for them. I have a theory. I believe that there is a lot of autism that also ties into the sport of wrestling, or what we will define as spectrums of autism,
right,
that tie into the sport of wrestling. And I'm not an expert in this field, but we've been around long enough. There's an awful lot of high-level coaches who have autistic kids. Maybe there's been lack of diagnosis years ago, and now we're seeing it being diagnosed more properly. But we do see a lot of those characteristics of autism in a lot of our elite wrestlers.
Yeah, right.
That's my theory, and I don't mean to, I don't want to be insensitive to anybody, but when you look at how they compete on the mat, the things they do, how they are in a social atmosphere.
Yeah, they're not great socially, but they're laser focused on what they're doing there.
Exactly right. And isn't that like one of the characteristics of the autism or the spectrums of autism?
Sure.
That laser focus in math, or laser focus in art,
Right.
or the laser focus in wrestling.
Right.
So I have a small little theory on that, and I goof around with some of my wrestling buddies who have kids with autism, and we talk about it and have good conversations around it. So when Eric brings that up, that's always something I thought about. I don't see that very much in other sports, though. It seems that wrestling is that kind of safe haven for them to really do their thing.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a kid with autism, even nowhere near on the spectrum, that would be baseball. Would not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too much downtime. There's too much
Downtime, right?
Right. So, what you call it? I feel my theory on it was wrestling wise, because that's what I've seen the most of. Is that doesn't matter if they have autism, they're still better than they would be with autism while wrestling than without wrestling. It's not as much. So I mean, if you're just getting the physical part out of it, that's great. And if you have some problems, but we had kids that were sort of like slow. We had kids that were timid. We had kids that were it really didn't matter. You're still a better version of you in wrestling, in sports in general. I would imagine that just training for anything, no matter what your mental condition is, it's got to be better than without it.
People are people. We're not much different from each other.
Right.
If you could find something that you enjoy, you can find something that you could put your passion in. If you could find something that keeps your mind occupied, your body occupied, by all means do it. I would never turn any kid away from coming in at Beast and trying it out and seeing if it works and working with the parents to get it done. I want to make sure that I always say this about Beast. Of course, we got to pay. We got to pay the bills. We got to keep the doors open. But I never want price point. I never want athletic ability to be a reason why a kid doesn't walk in that door and give it a shot.
Now, what about an older person like, like as you get older, maybe more cardio is involved there? Do you guys have like treadmills and stuff like that up there?
I do. So I believe, like I mentioned, I'm all about metabolic conditioning. I've sat in head football coaches' offices, and they've told me that this guy is doing X, Y, and Z for their kid. They're all benching 400. They're all squatting 500. And my response was real clear. No, I probably won't get your guy benching 400. He won't be squatting 500. He won't look like the Marshmallow Man. What he's going to do, though, is probably bench 350 and probably squat 450, and he's going to run circles around your athlete.
Right.
Because I believe in having fit athletes.
Sure.
So everything we do revolves around cardio. Every workout, you're going to have at least 1 mile of cardio, whether it's on the rowing machine, on the Aerodyne bikes, or on the treadmills.
Oh, I love the rowing machine. We had one season where one of them had shin splints or something like that, and they couldn't take the impact, and that rowing machine was like full body, cardio, good. And wrestling, you're always pulling that leg in and stuff anyway. The rowing machine, just terrific. Good. Well, I don't know, anything else do you want to cover as far as Beast goes? I think that if you have the mindset of athleticism is the key, then get into Beast. It sounds like a way better thing than just buying somebody a membership at a regular gym. Anything else?
No, that's it, Bill. Just thank you for letting me come on here and talk a little
bit. It's
bit.
good seeing you, man. I don't think I've got this much time to sit down. We're usually at a wrestling meet. It's like, hey, what's going on? And then we're focused on what's happening there. So
yes.
Good. All right. Look, fill up. Good, man. Cool.